Hi everyone, welcome to a new segment of the Go With Ego podcast called Life Experiences, an Expert's View. It's a fresh segment of our podcast that will feature very special guests, excelling in their careers to give us varying perspectives on life based on their individual experiences. We will delve into informative topics and discussions that would challenge our mindset to see life from a different perspective. And for those who are struggling to see it, help them paint a picture of what life really is or can be in the long term or in the short term. Today, I have the honor of introducing to the world a friend, a man whose depth of knowledge in different life issues is something to reckon with. Life in itself is an unending maze, and scaling through always requires some guidance from someone who has been through that phase before or who is living through it now. My guest is such a person, having successfully navigated through adulting and has built a successful career for himself. Kes Oge, welcome to the new segment of the I Go With Ego podcast. How are you today?
I'm fine. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being on the podcast. Tell my audience something about you, who you are, where you're from, what you do, something exciting about you.
My name is Kes Oge, like you've alluded to before. I'm from Nigeria, but I reside in the UK. I'm in the IT space. I do network engineering, and I also design apps. I have a food delivery company in Nigeria, Speedy Bites, where I created an app to help with food delivery. So, fun thing about me, I like to reading is fun. I like to read. Reading is boring. It's not fun. Yeah, it's fun for some people. But yeah, I think I'm very open-minded. I try to learn as much as I can so that I can experience as much as I can. Right. So that for me, it's just taking every day as it comes and seeing the best of it.
In between, we have entire phases of our lives, infancy, puberty, adolescence, teenage years, and very possibly the longest phase of our lives, which scares us all the time, called adulthood. As young humans, we are somewhat permitted to be a little carefree, knowing that most needs are taken care of by our parents and that we do not entirely have to be responsible for ourselves, at least for most. Adulthood changes everything. There are suddenly no free cash handouts anymore. You have to be entirely responsible for yourself and bear the outcomes of your decisions. As an adult, you have to pay your own bills, you have to run your own affairs with little or no guidance and a bunch of other things. It becomes very overwhelming all of a sudden because in your head, you think aloud, how can I judge all of it and not mess it up? It can really be confusing at first. It is basically an endless race to ensure personal survival and success. This begs the question for most young adults: how do I sail the high waters of adulthood and not get drowned? How can I be responsible? How can I manage my finances so I don't get wrecked? My guest today will try to make sense of it all. Mr. Kes, what is adulting and why is it even necessary to talk about it in the first place?
Adulting is, like you said, we have phases of life that we go through. Be an infant, from there becoming child, adolescence, the ultimate one where you get to and you kind of have to take charge of your own life. Most part of it, that's the adulting part, and that's where people struggle with, because adulting generally just means being a responsible adult. And as an adult, it means like you said earlier, your bills, your health, your plan, how you want to live your life, kind of live responsibly. I guess that's how I see adulting.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That word "live responsibly" it's something that most people ponder with all their life. What does it mean to live responsibly?
To live responsibly, I'll say most human beings are guided by different things. As a citizen of a country, you're guided by the Constitution. If you're a religious person, you're guided by your religion, and then as human beings, we develop, based on your environment, your religion, your spirituality, you form your own principles, and those principles help you to not step on people's toes, if I could say that, in the right way, because no matter what you do, you might end up stepping on someone's toes, but it means that, you don't do anything that's illegal. You have your own set out plan and you go about it in a way that you don't get into any kind of trouble. people can also extend that to mean more. Some people say, oh, you're okay, you're living fine, but you're not achieving anything. So some people might be extra, let me put it that way, and say that's not responsible. But in my own term, I feel, my opinion, I feel being responsible just means you're doing things by the book.
Nice. I like the word by the book, So at what point does a person become an adult? Is it tied to age, assumption of certain responsibilities, or even other metrics?
Yeah, for me, there are two main metrics for defining adulthood.
Okay.
Biologically, we'll say when you're fully developed as a man, as a woman. Some places you're an adult when you're 16, some when you're 18, some when you're 21. It depends on what they expect as adults in those environments. Then, as regards responsibility, when you start managing your own affairs, financial, your health, your day-to-day activities, that will be the second metric I'll use in defining adulthood.
Thank you. That's a great one. Most young adults struggle initially, especially with finances, and it's led many astray. How can one then manage one's finances as a young adult?
Well, I think it takes me back to secondary school days where we did accounting, right? I'm not an art student, but for one reason or the other, my dad asked me to do accounting as a course. And one that stuck with me was control accounts. So in control accounts, you have the account that goes out, the one that comes in, right? So it's just basic, right? So one of the main things in order for you to manage your accounts is to know exactly how much you're making and how much you're spending. If with that, you can decide to have various kinds of plans, right? It could be pro and it could be, post. Pro as in how much do I really want to have, right? So that kind of guides how you begin to try to attract the money you have. Oh, I want to earn more, whatever. Or this is how much I have, and this is how much I need to spend to be able to manage myself, right? Because most young people are guided by, oh, I want to have this, I want to have that, I want to have that, I want to go to the moon, So you already see yourself in the moon, and you forget where you sleep at night. You're still in Earth, but they're still on Earth, isn't it? So you have to be very realistic. You have to know how much you're making and how much you're spending. Most young adults don't know that. So I would say first thing, in order for you to manage your accounts properly, is budgeting. So that would be what it will come to. And with budgeting, how much you're making. That's the most important thing. And then you have to be able to also monitor how much you're spending and what you're spending it on, because there are some things that are major and some things that are minor. For instance, you got your phone bills. I would say that's major. Transportations to work and other food, rent. And then there will be minor things, things you want to treat yourself with. I could even put maybe like Netflix as a minor thing, right? So something like that. Oh, I need to have the latest Jordans or whatever. All those are minor things, But some people kind of mix both, right? They do the minor things and then they come back to say, oh, what's left for the major thing? All that kind of small understanding will be like, okay, we'll do the major ones, and if there's room after that, cool. Give heed to the minor things, and then savings is very important. We need to try and put some money aside for whatever reason. Maybe some people like the good things, so you can save, and eventually get what you want. Emergencies as well, you can save for emergencies and all that kind of stuff. And debts, if you owe any money, that should be priority. You should learn how to get that out of the way. And health is important too, because sometimes we have habits that really ruin our health, and then we tend to spend the money we make on getting well. So we need to make sure that we're healthy, and sometimes being healthy is very cheap, very affordable. So
Not in
just
America.
well, it's habit. It's all habits.
True,
I
though.
think we kind of sometimes, like I say, you get carried away with habits that are not really beneficial to you.
True.
I see people every day with new Jordans. I have to have new Jordans,
Nope.
right? That's not that's not important. So you gotta have the right kind of habits, and just understand how money works eventually if you want to improve on how much you make. But the main thing will be budgeting, self-control. Make sure that you concentrate on major things and try and put some money aside and try and have as little debt as possible.
I agree. That the debt is what keep people in shackles for years. Especially student loans. When you come to school, you take student loans and loans and loans. And I remember when I was working in the admissions office, students come and they have scholarships already paid for the tuition, and they still want to come to take on subsidized loan because they want to buy a car. Because the day I refused a young black man from getting a loan, like, you don't need this money. You already have money from the government to pay your school fees already, your tuition. So just go and work for it and get the smaller car.
Absolutely.
A year later, he saw me and he was so thankful to me that he didn't get that loan that time I stopped him from getting it.
Yeah, that comes down to like I said, the major and minor things, right? Most times the things we borrow money for, apart from mortgages, are minor things. Right, because you can get a simple car to take you from A to B, and you'll be like, I could get the car I want when I can afford it. But many people, because they have access to loans, they feel like I can afford that car now, so why do I have to wait till tomorrow? But the truth is, tomorrow another new car is going to come, and you're going to borrow more, because then it's a habit you need to keep up with. So I think we need to have self-control and understand what major and minor is.
I agree. Most young people are adults are led astray. The question then is, where did they get it wrong? Because most times young people, not just in Nigeria or Africa, across the world, they don't have jobs. Okay, it's not an excuse for them now. Most of them say that's an excuse, though, to go into fraud, to go into bad things, to go into all the kind of things they go into. So at that point, who do you blame? Do you blame the government for not giving young people jobs, or do you blame the young people for not trying hard, or do you blame the families for not checking on the kids? Where do they miss it?
I think I'll start with the smallest unit. I'll say parenting can be very instrumental, or it's the most instrumental. It kind of shields you sometimes from the government issues, right? Because, like you said, so many people say they don't have jobs, right? So if your parents are nagging every day about lack of jobs, then you're gonna grow up with the mindset that there are no jobs. But if you have the right kind of parents that are innovative, creative, that's the mindset, right? So yeah, you could say the government, but you look at most countries that have governments that create jobs. I don't think there's any country that puts the job creation responsibility on the government per se. It kind of relies on the innovation of individuals to we could say, government should encourage people to be innovative and all that, but that's a subject for another day. I think parenting is very critical. Most of us, especially young people now, live on social media, so what you spend time on influences you the most. When you see things, you become very, very hungry for them, very desperate for them, and you kind of, without having the right knowledge and understanding, you want to achieve it now, and that kind of pushes you to do whatever it is that you need to do, whether it's legal or illegal. You kind of sell your future to get your present, and that kind of influences a lot of people growing up at the minute. But I would say people should kind of understand what it takes, the right way to get what you want, and don't be desperate. If there's someone that you think has the kind of life you want, then try and learn what exactly they do to get it. And then, like we said earlier, we're guided by constitutions, laws around us, and see how that fits with those laws, right? So if someone, for instance, we have the fraud thing. Fraud is bad because the law says fraud is bad. So there's no point. So if you really want to get something, you have to find a way, the right way to do it to be able to get it.
Yeah, I agree. Upbringing is very important. For me, it's all about integrity. That's what it is. But you see, it becomes so sad when even the parents nowadays, some of the parents are the ones even encouraging the kids
absolutely
to fraud, and they're the ones cashing out for them back home, and it's sad to see.
Yeah, and I feel like many times we have a clash of interest, or when I say interest, but we kind of misuse the information we have just to make people influence them the wrong way, right? Because I was listening to the other day, this might be a little bit distracting, because I said we're guided by government, religion, all that kind of stuff. So if your religious leader is encouraging you to do something bad, so that cuts off your parents, because your parents have introduced you to that life. So that's part of parenting now. So it might clash with the constitution, but you just feel like, because religion is divine, you can get away with it. So that kind of, it gets ingrained in your mindset, and when one person achieves that way, it influences everyone around them, to be able to follow suit. So that's very misguiding, but it's what we kind of have to deal with at the moment. So,
yeah, I agree. Most adults worry about it for help, So is it okay for young adults to ask for help for their parents if the parents can afford to help them, or how can they, when it gets too hard for them, what do you think they should do?
It depends on, in my opinion, depends on what you're asking them for. I remember reading the Rich Dad Poor Dad. And the boy wanted to be wealthy, and his dad was a prof or whatever it was in school, and he said, "Oh no, you got to go to the other guy," right? So most of the time, our parents can't really help us. If my dad is a doctor, for instance, and I'm an engineer, and I want to be a successful engineer, I don't think he will have an engineering advice for me, because I don't want to say help is, oh, give me some money, because it's only encouraging me to rely on you more, So I feel, some parents could help by directing you to the people that can really help you. So I think in that case, we could look up to, or for principles, or maybe dad, I don't know, I'm not getting it. My dad can say, oh, Cass, if you go to Amazon, you're going to see 20 books on how to be what you say you want to be. Have you read them? Have you read them? That kind of help. It's, I think, but then, that's not something you come back to your parents for. They should have done that before you became an adult.
Sure.
So if you're coming back to your parents, then it feels like a failure in a way, but you could come, but like, for instance, if your dad is in real estate and you are in real estate, you're struggling a little bit, then your dad can say, hey, this is how I did it, this is how, if you haven't learned it already. Okay, so I'll be like, yes. If you have bad habits you're trying to overcome, you might have an opinion from your dad and say, okay, when I was young, I used to be extravagant, and this is how I was able to manage, all those kind of help. I think you can, if your parents have excelled in what you're asking for. That's the key thing, because you can't ask someone to help you on something that they are not. They are not. Because the source of what they're gonna give you is something you can go get yourself. If someone is, if you're married, for instance, and you go meet a single guy, say, okay, can you help me? He's only gonna tell you something he's read or he's learned from somewhere, so you might as well go to the source and learn by yourself. So which most of the time our parents want to be parents forever, which is good, but I feel like once we become adults, we have to take a lot. I mean, that's part of adulting. You have to take a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, I think the parents want to be parents for forever. It's more of the African culture. In Europe, in the US, of course, when you're at that age, 18, you're out of the house. And I tell people that I grew up in a house where my dad reminded us always after high school that, hey, when you're done with high school, oh yeah, hustle. Go and hustle your way and make it in life. Go to university and hustle and do your thing. So that mentality of always not settling for less, of settling for where we find ourselves, always striving to be the best, has been there for me all this while. So, and of course, growing up in Sapele,
Yeah. I mean, it's good to have good parents. I'll say that. Absolutely. Because if your parents have become what they plan to become, I mean, they could teach you basic things like setting goals, which is very important, and they can also guide you and encourage you, and they can actually see when you're in the right direction or in the wrong direction, and then they can help to remind you that this is what you said you were going to do. How is it going, just to keep you in check. But like I said, we should be very careful, because sometimes parents are used to just guiding us.
True.
And they don't know when it's got to the point where they have to let go. They just feel like, but it's which is not necessarily the case.
I remember my friend was telling me that, if we had listened to everything our parents said, we won't be where we are today.
Absolutely.
We'll
you got to rebel
at home.
You got to rebel sometimes. Yeah, absolutely. I still clash with my mom from that. From sometimes, you should do this, you should do that. and I'll be like, explain, because you still have to be very polite,
of course,
parents and everything. But you have to find a way to also let them know that you're not really good in this field. Not really good in this field. You just have to find a good way where they'll sit back and say, okay, I'll let you be. And
it becomes beautiful when you add with all due respect at the
end. Absolutely. You have to be cheeky.
So, at what stage of adulthood, should one begin saving or investing, and for the long term?
I'll say even before you become an adult. It should be a habit implanted in you from childhood. I mean, there's the different concepts. First, the ability to earn money and how to spend money. Because if our parents normally know how much we get as kids. So if you say, okay, you know what, you put money aside, and if you put that money aside, you can appreciate, or you could do this, you could do that, right from when you're a kid. Every $1 you get, if you have $1, means you can only spend 60. You can have a 10% where you just give it to people, or whatever. I think those are habits we need to learn from childhood, because when you grow older, it becomes difficult to actually start. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it becomes difficult because we kind of feel like the money we earn is what we need to budget on. But when you have that mindset of budgeting on a certain percentage of it, it becomes natural to you. When you get paid, you be like, I can only spend this, I can only spend that. I have to put some money for passive revenue, or some active side revenue. Put some for savings, put some for charity. I mean, those are habits you have to get as a kid, because as a kid, you are not pressured to spend money. You want to spend, but you're not really pressured to spend, right? Because so if we have the right kind of people around us to put that in us, that'd be good. But if you're an adult and you didn't have that as a kid, well, you could always start with as little as possible. I mean, once you know about savings, because many people never hear about savings until they're broke, yeah. So once you become an adult and you have to save, it doesn't matter how much you save, so long as you save. And also with investment, which I kind of say as savings as well, because when you save, the money actually depreciates. So investing too, you could say, okay, I got another $5 I need to invest, and when you see that the $5 you invest, maybe at the end of the year, your investment makes it $100 or $200. You'll be like, okay, I probably need to put a little bit more. Then that's better than gambling, because there's something that will definitely come out of that, and that opens a lot of opportunities. So it's a mindset more than the amount. Once you have the right mindset to save or to invest, it only appreciates. So I'll say the moment you think about saving, then you should start.
Absolutely. Welcome back from the short break. I still have my friend Mr. Kes Oge here with us, talking on a very important topic, Adulting 101. As an adult, how do one act or relate with people, especially when you're in a new environment? You've left your house or your family, you're going to a new place. How do you tend to relate?
I'll say, as an adult, you should know what you want to become, because that kind of first makes you choose the kind of friends that you want to have around you. And when you do find the people you want, you can. I used to be very much of an introvert, and that cost me a lot. So you should try and go out of your way to reach out to them, to talk to them, start a conversation. I would say one of the turning points in my life was when I had not a direct boss. I had this guy in another department, and he came one time. He normally works 4 hours in a day, and I didn't meet him too much, but we had a meeting one time, and he came in. I think he got a new car, very nice car, a Porsche, brand new Porsche. So I was like, yeah. I used to drive an SUV before, and he just came that day because my office was close to the car park, so I could tell the people that are in and the people that are not in. So it's, oh, I'm in. Oh, I changed my car. Sorry, my wife took my car the other day. That's what he was telling the project manager I was working for, because he wasn't directly in my team, but we're working together. He was a design expert, and I was listening to what he was saying, and he said on his way to work that day, he branched to buy this car. So I was thinking, this is the £100,000 car, and you're on your way to work on a Thursday morning, you branch to pick it. So I really need to know this guy. so I started thinking, how do I, So he likes coffee, So I'm like, okay. One day I went out, I was grabbing coffee, and I noticed you had coffee all the time. So I'm going to grab coffee. Do you want me to grab you one? And he said, oh yeah, sure. He told me exactly the coffee one. So I got him the coffee. And because we're in the office and it works for just 4 hours, I couldn't talk much. But I said, it's like you like, because his coffee is extra, So I was like, you like? He said, yeah. He now told me one special coffee shop where he would like to go, but he doesn't seem to have time. Maybe sometime next week. I said, why not? What does he do during the break? I could take him there. They're like, are you sure? I said, so I took him there because I was thinking in my mind that would give me an extra 30 minutes to just sit down and pick his brains, right? So, and that's what I did. It cost me a few quid, but very expensive, the most expensive coffee I've but what I got in 30 minutes, so it kind of changed my mindset, and that kind of made a very big impact in my life. So I'll say, once you see the kind of people you want to associate with in your wherever you are, you should be able to reach out to them, find what they want, try and do a favor just to get close to them, so that you can actually understand what they do, how they do it. I feel like that's very important. You don't just want to hang out with just anyone. You want to hang out with people that can make a difference in your life. And don't keep the communication. Keep it going. Keep it going. It's not just a one-day thing. Just keep it going.
I agree. And people that we look up to, that want to be like or want to follow the same path that they followed, they're generally very welcoming when you reach out to them.
Absolutely.
You always have to ask for help, and if you don't have help, nobody will help you.
Nobody will help you. I mean, some people really want to pass information. I mean, it's like you see a young person making bad decisions. You know, sometimes you don't want to talk to them because you don't know how they're going to react. So once they come to you, you feel like, oh man, I believe in the next few months this guy's gonna turn around, or this girl's gonna turn around based on what I'm gonna tell them. Because the difference between John and James is what John knows and James doesn't. So sometimes they just want to pass that information, and if we are willing to be humble enough to listen, you know, to follow steps, why not? Why not? So I feel like we should be very selective for people that we get acquainted to, and we should keep it going. If we find out that this is the right person to be around, because it's a good accountant, is a good real estate agent, is a good, you know, like we said earlier, got like passive, active investment, you know, so you have the right kind of network around you. Sometimes you just have to put, you know, it's like very knowledgeable gambling. Oh, this guy he runs his figures, and you feel like, I trust him, you know, because I've known him for a while and I see how much he's benefited from it. Because we can't be everyone, we can only be who we are. So sometimes we need the right network to help to elevate us in different spheres of life. So that makes life a lot easier. We can reach out to people and they'll be ready to help us. One important thing about that is we should also strive to have something to offer others, right? Because sometimes when you don't offer anyone anything, you know, people will leave you quickly because no one just wants to give and not get something in return. So I think that's something that we should also focus on.
Yes, so focusing on that and with that mindset, is it still possible to totally hack adulthood?
I'll say there are basic things that will help.
Okay.
Yeah. The earlier you know who you want to be, the better. For instance, if you want to be an engineer, because being an engineer doesn't necessarily mean you have a bachelor in engineering. You know, if you can make something, because engineering means creativity. If you can make something, then that makes you an engineer. So you can start making something the moment you know you want to be an engineer. So we said being an adult means you can take care of yourself. You know, you have steady jobs, income, whatever. So one of the main resource we could get is our creativity. So that could provide for us. So if you know what you want to be, then how to get there is the only problem you have to deal with. So by the time many people are going to universities to take loans to do courses they're not sure of, you already know what you want to do. So and sometimes you might not even have to go the route everyone is going, because what people actually go to learn in universities is to be able to create something. I'm just focusing on engineering here. So if you're already creating something by the time you're 18, then why do you need to go to university? You know, right. So because they're actually going to universities. I mean, the great most of the people who want to be, you know, barely went to school, or those that went just had one degree and that was it. But most of us will have 3, 4, 5 degrees. I don't know what we're looking for, but clearly we're not sure what we want to be. So we just acquire a lot of debt and trying to be someone. I'm not no shades to education, but many people don't really understand what education is. Education, in my opinion, is just having the knowledge to get what you want to get. Right. So if you have the right kind of knowledge that you need to get where you want to get, because there are two things now: where do I actually want to go, you know, and then what do I need to take me there? You know, obviously, if you want to be a doctor or lawyer, you have to go to school, you know. But most other things, it depends on your ability to actually achieve it, because that's what you're going to learn in school. You know, I mean, history. The more time you spend reading history, the more you know about history. You know, many people go to school and they never read, so they might graduate with history. But you that never went, you probably know history better than they do. So I feel like one of the main things that will help us to be the kind of adult we want is to know who you really want to be, or what you really want to be. and then that makes you focus on what you need to do to be that person. In my opinion, I feel like reading helps. Reading solves a lot of problems, because if you understand options and you know how to choose between the options you have, then that kind of helps you navigate through life a little bit better, right? Many people have to feel in everything first, but some people kind of understand why people feel in this and that and that and that, and why I don't need to do that, because I know where that is going to lead me to and all that kind of stuff. So having that education, having the right kind of knowledge, will help to be the person we want to be. So that's how I feel will be the best way to be able to what you say, hack adulthood. Yeah. So that's
all right. Yeah. Well, thank you. I've been a huge advocate for quality education.
Yeah.
Because education it's not the same across the world. The education we had back home in my country, our country, Nigeria, is not the same I had or we had over here in this other country. So hopefully we can be in a place where education in of itself around the world truly it has the quality it should have, and everyone has almost a level playing field to be the best of them. So
I feel like I think now it's a little bit more of a level playing field, in the sense that there's more room to pay creativity almost everywhere. And there's also being able to work remotely. So if I can show my work and show how creative I am, I don't have to, because before you didn't have the opportunity to show your work beyond your immediate environment, right? People in your school or whatever. But now, if I make something that can make a difference in Russia, for instance, or in the US or in the UK, I can actually show them, or from South Africa easily, and I'll have a few phone calls if people are interested. So I feel like I think people should concentrate more on, like I said earlier, being who they want to be. But then knowing who you want to be should also relate to how influential you can be across the board, because most people generally want to be successful, but to be successful you have to be relevant to a lot of people. So being relevant is what people don't really understand. So that's where creativity, because most people focus on globalization, they're just multiplying people's creativity. So if you understand how to actually make a difference, advertising it would be another thing. Show people, oh, I could do this, I could do that. If people around you don't really understand what it is, other people can be attracted, and it doesn't dull you in any way.
I think my audience would like to know, what coping mechanisms have helped you in particular navigate through adulthood so far?
I like sports a lot. For one thing, right? We only see the results.
True.
Yeah. I'm not saying sports help me, because I'm saying this because most people only focus on when they are what they plan to be. But for me, I make the goals very, very small, so that I can enjoy achieving each of them, if that makes sense. So if I could give an example, students, how school is, right? You want to be an engineer, and you say, I have 4 years or 5 years to be an engineer. So that means I have 10 semesters to be an engineer. So once I graduate every semester, I don't say once I pass, once I graduate every semester, I'm going to celebrate it, right? I don't have to become an engineer I don't have to have the certificate at the end to enjoy it. I have to enjoy it every step of the way. Every time I pass a test, it's a big deal, right? It's a big deal every time I pass the test. So what that means is I see the test as the biggest thing I have to achieve. So it reduces my focus to just the moment. I understand the ultimate goal, but the goal, once you make the goals very small, it's so much fun just taking them away. So that, you see, that keeps me grounded even up till now. It's like reading a book. The book is 1,000 pages. Well, with every 20 page I read, I said, man, I was like, I can go through 20 pages of this. Man, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. So I just make the journey enjoyable. So because I spend more time in the journey than I actually do at the end. So I'm not gonna, and I mean, the end of one race is the beginning of another one. So it's not like when I get to the end, that's it. You're gonna continue and continue and continue. So if you have that kind of mindset, it means that it's gonna always be a fun ride. Which also means you have to understand how to make goals. So many people just live life like that. They don't understand that, I want to be this, because if you want to be that, then I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do that. And if I'm going to do that, every time I do that, I should have cause to celebrate it. By celebration, I don't mean you go and call all your friends and do a party or whatever, but you do something that you won't normally do for you, right? That kind of keeps you grounded. And that's one coping mechanism I've always used. I still use till now. I just try and make it a fun ride.
Thank you for sharing that. Before I let you go, I have 2 more questions for you.
No problem.
How would you advise a person just entering adulthood? Where do they start from? What do they do? What would you like to tell them?
I'll say first, you have to take time to know who you really want to be. Like we said earlier, there's no sense just living your life by the day. You have to understand that, Kirst, I really want to be a doctor, or I really want to be, I want to own my own construction, or whatever it is I need to do, or wherever it is I need to be. And once I have that knowledge, then I can start putting the pieces together. I can now say, okay, at this stage, this is what I need to do. At the next stage, that's what I need to do. That's what I need to do. That's what I need to do. And then we establish the ride. And then from then on, we can start, making it happen. Every time, and learning, education is very, very important. When I say education, I don't necessarily mean university or school. I mean just having the right kind of knowledge, right? Because we need that knowledge to actually draw out the plan. And we need that knowledge to actually navigate that plan. The knowledge will always evolve, because, as we grow, changes happen. But once we are grounded and we understand what it will take to do what we want to do, we keep that open, and then we have the right self-discipline to be able to make sure every day we put in the work to actually be that kind of person we want to be. And then understand money as well. Most times money can be very motivating.
True.
Many people just get money and spend money and get money and spend. You have to understand how money works. If we understand how money works, and you have like some of passive revenue, it gives you that comfort to be more aggressive with your other plans, because you don't have to worry too much about money. Because most adults, they make, I wouldn't say people should be afraid of making mistakes, but in my opinion, there are some mistakes that are unnecessary, very unnecessary, and then they make us waste time.
True.
For me, time is something that is very important. If you have the right knowledge, it tends to save you a lot of time. I would say people should focus on just knowing. Many of us are lazy to read, learn. If you want to be a businessman and you don't have business books that you read, then what's the point? I would say I had this friend, business is all he wanted to do. But initially he will spend more time reading religious books than business books. So one day I now asked him, I said, hey, bro, you say it's business. I didn't know you wanted to open a ministry. He said, that was good. He said, don't worry, that book that will solve everything.
Wow.
And then it took him a while for him to actually understand that, it's not like you will stop that, but you have to understand that this is where your focus is. This is where your life is about, and this is what will actually. I mean, if we all have something innate that we really want to express, this will help us to be able to bring it out the way that we plan to do it, and that's what education is about. And he was able to start focusing on that part, and that's when it started making a difference. And and that's, for me, that's very important. That's the joy of adulthood. If you can on time know what you want and start putting the right effort, getting the results, it makes adulthood very much enjoyable than just the hand to mouth 9 to 5 day-to-day kind of struggle. So that's what I'll say.
All right. Well, the last question I have for you is, what are those things you wish you knew as a young adult?
I wasted some time. I was lucky. I love to read, but I didn't read the right kind of books on time. So I didn't, and also, like I said earlier, I was kind of an introvert, so I didn't build the right kind of people around me on time as well. So I wasted a lot of time. I think that's very important for young people to know, because when you're young, you think you have all the time in the world, which is not true, because it's something you can never get back once you grow. We should always have a plan. I think that's important. When you do have a plan, it just guides the way you behave. It's like, if I want to be a pastor now, I'm not going to be messing about too much. I'm going to always be, anytime you're there, do you know Kes? You're like, that guy is like, he'll be a pastor. Everyone will know. Yeah, if I want to be an engineer, just the way I talk, the kind of books I read, where the programs I listen to, everything will tend to. It's not like you disregard every other thing, but your primary focus is like I said earlier, major and minor things. Every other thing becomes minor. Your major focus will be on the things that will take you to where you really want to be. So I'll say time wasting and lack of planning. Those were two very important, because if there's no plan, then you can't really say you're not disciplined, because there's no plan. So planning comes with discipline to be able to achieve what you actually plan. And then for you to draw a plan, you have to have knowledge to know what you're planning about, why you're planning in the first place. So I feel like those things for me are things I look back and say, I guess you didn't plan properly. You just wasted too much time going around and around in unnecessary circles. So I think young people will be able to pick that up and say, okay, you know what? Every day I'll have to have something I take away, so that in a week I know how much I've achieved, and in a month, in a year, because everything just goes really quickly.
Yeah, well, you've heard from Kes Oge, planning, discipline, wisdom. Those are essential things. But I would say, even though, yes, you said you wasted time, you turned out absolutely great. I'll tell you, there are a lot of people like myself and others that look up to you and see where you are. And, we want to be like you and, and follow that footstep that you followed. So thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I'm deeply grateful. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I don't want to spend time regretting all the time I wasted, so I will save that time so that I can put it in the plans I have ahead of me. So thanks a lot for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I've enjoyed it. So
thank you so much. Thank you.